Welcome. I'm Kim Conrow, President of the Native Plant Society of Texas. Our mission is promoting conservation, research, and utilization of native plants of Texas through education, outreach, and example. We're a 501c3 organization and are supported by grants, donation, and members' dues. Today we'll be talking about native plants for landscaping in the Cross Timbers and Prairies ecoregion of Texas. But first, for a moment, let's talk about why native plants. They're drought tolerant, usually do not need any fertilizing. They have natural three-season bloomers. They provide food, shelter for birds, butterflies, bees, and other wildlife. And they give humans a sense of place. Where are we in this world? What time of year is it? They tune us to the seasons of the year. We'll be seeing a lot of pictures today from my garden. So welcome to my garden and welcome to other places I'll show you in my garden and other people's gardens. And for the most part, these native gardens have transformed lifeless areas into places where birds, butterflies, and bees can find food, shelter, and water. And humans can find a welcoming place of beauty, relaxation, and joy. So let me show you a bit about why native plants and supplemental water. If you recall, in spring of 1990, we had a boatload of water. Plants grew and grew and grew, and then we had a mini drought. These pictures were taken on August 1 in my garden, and I did not supplement water whatsoever. So we had the scarlet sage, desert willow, and Turk's cap putting on a fabulous show without any help from me. 3 seasons of blooms in your garden. The bluebonnets, early spring, the Turk's cap. They're going to start growing up from their winter hideaway in early June, I would say, maybe late May. And you have cut them back in February because they'll die to the ground. And Turk's cap down here in the lower left-hand corner. I'm sorry, Maximilian sunflower. Oh my gosh, everybody has to have that. It can grow 2 to 7 feet tall depending on where it's at and how much water it gets. It is native to our region and it's a wonderful plant. So what are you doing this spring? Are you going down to the depot store and buying fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides? No, don't do that. You don't dress like this man. You know, why should your yard look like this? This is the 17th and 18th century. We don't want that. Well, gosh, it went on into the 19th and 20th, but we're not dressing like that anymore. So we need modern landscaping for modern concepts. And we need to change what we think about what is beautiful. Ask yourself, what kind of life does this support? Well, not this kind. This is what native plants support, native wildlife. Squirrels, bees, butterflies, spiders, baby mockingbirds there in the center. See the little fellow in the very center? He hasn't opened his mouth yet. And then there's maybe mama or daddy, I don't know, a little half bill as the bill is broken, and a beautiful swallowtail butterfly. So wildlife. And we support our monarch life cycle, which is a Texas state insect. You can take an entire 3 classes, 8 hours each, for the National Wildlife Federation on the monarch life cycle and being a monarch steward and become certified as a monarch steward. But just in brief, this unique butterfly has this migratory throughout the central part of the United States, going north in spring and south in the fall to overwinter in Mexico. And you can see coastally we have some separate populations that may or may not intermix. So you should start seeing them now. It's March. I saw my first one, I believe it was just last week. So fabulous. We're going to support the monarch life cycle by having native plants in our garden. And what else can native plants do for us? Well, they help us with our physical and mental health and well-being. And isn't that what we all need these days? So go out in nature, enjoy nature, love nature, and see what nature can do for you. This is a picture from my front garden, and I have it certified through the National Wildlife Federation as a wildlife habitat and through Monarch Watch as a monarch way station. I also have the Texas Parks and Wildlife certification that they gave years ago, but I can't find my sign for that, sadly. I'll find it. Anyway, this helps my neighbors to understand what the heck I'm doing, and maybe they'll start to learn what a great idea this is to have native plants and to emulate it because it's stunningly beautiful most of the time. Now, let's get into landscaping and the cross timbers. Please keep in mind that the plants that I will show you today are just a small fraction of the native plants that can thrive in your landscape. So get out there and find more native plants. Here we are, Cross Timbers and Prairies ecoregion of Texas. The arrow puts this is about where I'm at. This region has both a sandy soil in our cross timbers and a alkaline, rocky prairie area more to the west. And in the middle, of course, is the ecotone where they mix. It's a wonderful, diverse ecoregion, and come explore it with me. Here we are in spring. We're in Texas, y'all. This is my yard after I quit mowing after, gosh, living here for 15 years. I had given some part of my front yard to nature, but I hadn't given it all. And now I finally decided to give it all to nature. So I quit mowing my front yard, and look what was in the seed bank. Yes, beautiful native plants were just waiting for me to quit the mowing. So I did. Firewheel popped up, antelope horn popped up. How wonderful is that in my front meadow? In the areas that I completely left alone and never mowed and just let nature take its course, spring herald shows up. This is called elbow bush. It's an early spring herald, obviously the name, and it's important for our native bees. This is a dioecious plant. It has male and female flowers. What you're looking at here is a male plant. The female flowers are, so you can see the anthers there in the larger blow up. The female flowers have lots of little ovaries, little pistils, and they're green, so they're very different. So these have passed their bloom time now here in March. I think there would be very rare to find some, but you may on your travels. If you do, look for the female flower, and if it's passed, look for them next spring. Here it is, early March in my neighborhood, and how gorgeous is this? Missouri primrose. They look like stars in the sky. How gorgeous is that? Another important plant for our early bee, showing up bees. Golden groundsel, photographed by Josephine Keeney. Thank you very much. And this plant can spread out, make itself happy, fill in shade areas, impart sun, and also be spring herald. So how wonderful is that? Josephine shared this pink evening primrose picture with me. These are native to our region. They can also spread out and form beautiful expanses of flowers, or easily mowed or pulled back and kept in control. Foxglove penstemon, a photo by another member of our Native Plant Society, Sandy Fountain. This beautiful plant can be found in our prairies, in our rocky prairies. It can be found, there's examples of it in the Stella Rowan Prairie, which is just west of TCC South on Loop 820. It's a gorgeous plant, and I hope you will take time to seek out and find these in nature and leave them in nature. We can always collect seeds, and always, I think this one's available in the nursery trade, so Don't get those plants from nature. Leave them in nature. Thank you very much. Next slide is prairie phlox, another beautiful photo provided by Sandy Fountain. This is her front yard. It has Greg Salvia blooming, I see there. It looks like maybe some, I can't really tell what that is, dewdrops or whatever. Anyway, compare it and contrast it to her neighbor's yard. Seriously, which one would you rather look at? Maybe her neighbors have changed their ways. Wine cups. Wine cups are gorgeous spring bloomers, and they can bloom throughout the summer. Different species do different things. So that's why I didn't give you a genus. These are plants that can grow in shade and part sun and have a multitude of colors. The possum haw holly, that's my clock from Audubon there. It's on the hour, noon. Anyway, possum haw, this is what it looked like a couple weeks ago in my yard, full of berries, waiting for some birds to come eat it, or squirrels perhaps. Autumn sage. Autumn sage can be considered an all-season plant. The one with the sun showing in it was taken in December of this year. It stayed in bloom all year because of our mild winter. You must have this plant in your garden. It's really native to the Edwards Plateau region, but it grows fabulously here and it's easily found in the nursery trade, so I highly recommend it. Millie Blue Sage. This plant was a gift from nature in my yard. This was one of the wild places I never mowed. This is a beautiful spring photograph of it, and here them with the primrose. But what I'll do in July is I will cut this back almost to the ground, and then it's going to give that other new flush for fall for the migratory monarchs and other migratory insects, including other butterflies and migratory birds that are going to eat those. So yay, do your due diligence and cut them back in July for the fall flush. Here's my walkway in spring. The bluebonnets were seeded, but the Engelmann daisy, the yellow flower you see there, and on the right side of the walkway, that light purple color there is prairie verbena. Those were gifts from nature. And so was that little stand right there with some rough leaf dogwood in, which I'll show some close-ups here in a minute. Here's another spring plant that's lovely, spiderwort. You can find it in ditches all over our county. You can also find it in the nursery trade. It comes in lots of different colors, pink and white, and it's absolutely stunning. It is a spring flower. It'll spread throughout your garden in the areas that it's happy. Please get that and plant it. It's gorgeous. Look at that flower. Isn't that just stunning? The next slide is Texas Mountain Laurel. Really more, well, really native to south of here in the Texas Plateau, Edwards Plateau. But this plant will grow in our region. This is in the rocky area in my front yard. The hole was dug with a pickaxe 15 years ago. It's a slow growing plant. It can be a bush or tree form depending on how you plant it. And this picture with the bees here was actually taken yesterday. So how about that? It's helping our bees. Oh, by the way, smells great. Coral honeysuckle, a hummingbird plant. It's a vine. You can choose to trim it back or let it go wild. I'm experimenting with different areas. And I planted one 20 years ago, or 23 now. Wow, time flies. And it's starting to, I just started noticing the last few years that it has popping up in different places. So that's fun. I can pot some up for a plant sale, or I can move it around to my yard to different areas. Your milkweed. This is going to flower later in spring, not right now in March, but you might see this kind of flower in late April or May, and it's going to be both a host plant for the monarch butterfly and queen butterflies. They're, the adult will lay eggs on the leaves, and the larvae will eat the leaves, collecting some cardiac glycosides to make them untasty to birds. And while they have this, and they tend to want to lay on younger plants. If you see them eating them, let them eat. Go to town. That's part of nature. The plant knows what it's doing. It'll be okay. You'll get this beautiful flower later on, and as you can see, lots of different pollinators get nectar from it. It's a fabulous nectar plant as well, as are all the milkweeds. Green milkweed in my front yard when I quit mowing. Isn't that absolutely stunning? So it's native to north central Texas, as is the Asclepias asperula, also called antelope horn milkweeds, I guess because of the slender nature of the leaves. I really like to get out there and look at it when it has a little pink star. Isn't that just a gorgeous design? So here we have a wonderful show in my front, just a little slideshow there of the Engelmann daisy and mealy blue sage. And now here's that rough-leaf dogwood I was telling you about. I was so surprised when I started reviewing my slides for this presentation to see all the different pollinators that are in rough-leaf dogwood. Here you have the red admiral in the lower right-hand corner, a viceroy up in the upper right. I know it's a viceroy because of that band across the lower hind wings. In the larger picture, I see two different butterflies, a red admiral, and I'm not sure, maybe some kind of hackberry butterfly, and also a little ladybug. How fun is that? So here's the early spring bud. This was taken, the bud picture was taken 2 years ago in 2018. And I have to say, the plants have, this happened 2 weeks ago in 2020. So things are changing, whether we want to believe it or not. Here's the rough leaf dogwood, then with the butterflies. Moving on, redbud. This is what they look like right now in my front yard. How beautiful is that? We have Texas redbud and Mexican redbud that grow in our area, and they're both equally wonderful plants. They're small trees, so if you have a small yard, you want a small tree. You do not want a live oak in your yard. It's going to become too big, shade your ground out pretty much year round. It'll be a mess. Plant, be smart, learn your plants, learn what sizes they get as adults, and plant what's appropriate for your garden. This is a wonderful small tree, and as they grow, as your trees grow, learn how to prune them and do the right thing by them so that they will be beautiful for years to come. Here's fragrant sumac. This is a wonderful native plant that provides berries in the spring. How neat is that? So nature knows what it's doing, and it's providing berries in fall and spring. So berries in fall will feed our overwintering birds, and here's the spring for a yummy, tasty treat for birds and other insects. No, birds aren't insects. That was silly. All right, here we go. This is by my front door. That's in that small little woodland I showed you. Engelmann daisy, fragrant sumac. These are all just gifts from nature. Thank you, nature. And those hungry babies, what do they need? They need insect protein. Babies cannot eat seeds. They need for the mamas to go out and get them some tasty insects and feed them. These sweetie pies here thought that my phone was their mama, and I didn't have anything to feed them, but I'm sure they were fine. These are mockingbird babies. That is our Texas state bird. Prairie parsley. This actually probably wasn't taken in spring, but it's coming up now in spring, and it is a host plant for the swallowtail butterfly. So it's everywhere in my garden, so yay, prairie parsley. And here's a swallowtail, an adult. I talked to an entomologist about this very insect that I watched emerge from its chrysalis, and and then helped it to the underside of this rock so it could drop its wings and harden. And he said that it's quite possible that the insect spent its entire life cycle in my garden. So my garden was its universe. How wonderful is that? The possum haw holly is, again, a small tree or a bush, and it's very important for migratory birds. I watched this cedar waxwing flock come through, and they decimated this particular tree in one day. So I don't know how long they lasted on that, but how wonderful that this bush fed a flock of birds. And I hope that that gave them enough energy for many miles of travel. I'd have to ask a birdman about that. Trumpet vine. This will get very large and take over. I have it on a fence in my garden that when I do mow, which is not that often, it can be kept in control because it's going to spread. And I'm not really sure. I think more by roots than by seeds, but I love it. I have seen birds and butterflies and bees on these flowers. They're so beautiful. Here's part of my front yard. Left is a Mexican buckeye, and to the right is a smoke tree. And so these, and then of course a little wildflower stand there full of Engelmann daisy and firewheel. And in the back you can see my neighbor's house. They have two crepe myrtles and some sort of hedge there. Neither one of those plants in the back feed anything. So maybe my example. We'll see. Here's the smoke tree. A little bit later on in spring. It's called a smoke tree. It's a three-season plant. It has gorgeous flowers and it looks like smoke, and it looks pretty in the fall, which you'll see later on. Here comes summer. And what do you need in summer? You need some books. You need Native Plant Region by Region by Sally Wasowski and Andy Wasowski, and Wildflowers of Texas by Michael Eason. So if you're going to stay home, which is pretty much what we're all doing right now, the Native Texas Plant Book can help you out. But if you go by yourself while staying 6 feet away from other people, the Texas Wildflowers of Texas book can help you ID what you're finding in the wild field. So either way, stay home or go for a little drive, you need both of these books for your summer travels, or all year travels really. Red yucca, native to the Edwards Plateau, grows very well in our north central region of the Cross Timbers and Prairies. It's a wonderful hummingbird plant. I've seen other kinds of insects on it. It's a beautiful plant. Hope you plant it. Greg's mist flower. My husband, Ray Conrow, wrote an article on Greg's mist flower, Conoclinium gregii, which if you go to the Native Plant Society website and search for it, you can find his article, and talks about the different compounds that the queen butterfly gets from this flower, and then the consequences of that. It's an interesting story, and I hope you go for a search and find that. Here's my dog Corey looking out. He likes to put his feet on that rock, same one that the swallowtail was on, and you can see the Conoclinium gregii, and then Greg salvia beyond that, and just a size comparison with the monarch butterfly and a 85-pound dog, Rhodesian Ridgeback. Eagle Scout projects. Need some help with your gardens? Well, let's remember the Eagle Scouts. Scouts need conservation hours for their merit badges. This little garden that has, if you look on the lower left side, Zexminia and then Turk's Cap, desert willows, passion flower was on the arbor. Then we had some Conoclinium gregii not in bloom here. I see it's not. This was a wonderful garden, but unfortunately it had to be moved for a building expansion. But all the hardscape and most of the plants were salvaged, so yay. And contact your local Eagle Scouts for help in your demonstration gardens. Desert willow, these were taken in that very garden. a couple years ago. This is a wonderful small tree. Again, not particularly native to our region, but will thrive here. And as things change, this should be more and more important. I have about 20 of these in my front yard. Hummingbirds really, really love them. Here's another slide from that Eagle Scout project. Purple passion flower. The bees were just going to town on this. And you can tell this is the native passion flower because the leaves have 3 lobes. So that's a key when you're looking for passion flowers. Look at the leaves. If they're 3-lobed, they'll be native. And then there's the Turk's cap around that. And here's a close-up of the Turk's cap. I forgot, I did get this butterfly ID'd on iNaturalist, which I hope that y'all are all playing with iNaturalist because the iNaturalist City Challenge is coming up. So be sure you look into that. Little I, capital N, Naturalist City Challenge. And anyway, what a gorgeous plant, right? This is an all-season, starts in June and goes until frost, dies to the ground, and then you'll clip down off the dead stalks about February, or you can do it in March if you waited too long, and you'll see it coming back up in late May, early June. Here's the trumpet vine I told you about before, and here's some, I have 2 colors in my garden. Here's some bumblebees on it. You can tell the one on this creamy colored flower, it's just got the pollen packed on its back legs there. How fun is that? Oh, a meadow, a prairie, whatever it is. Isn't that gorgeous? And it's in my front yard. Now, little blue stem in summer has this gorgeous bluish color on the left, and on the right, this beautiful russet color, very same exact plant, russet color in the fall. So it's, and if you have a big stand of these, a prairie, either 2 acres or 100 acres, very important for our quail. That's their habitat. You need to preserve that. Please don't mow it and mow it and mow it. Let it grow. Let it be nature. Mow some trails through it. There you go. That would be a great thing to do. Bluebells, a summer plant. These are, in my yard, ephemeral. They come and go at their whim. If they get enough rain, they come up. If they don't, they won't. They're, oh, I love them because they're very persnickety and come back not very often. But you can get seeds from this from Native American Seed and probably other seed sources. Native American Seed is in Junction, Texas, Native Plant Society members. And anyway, I'm pretty sure they sell a seed for this, so look that up on their catalog. We have lemon horsemint here on the left, and on the right, inland sea oats. So grasses should be part of your landscape. You can have a very formal looking landscape with native plants, or more of a wildscape look. It's what you choose, and it can be kept either way. So formal or a little bit more wild. So this is in my front yard, and the very front of here are the Maximilian sunflowers. They'll be blooming in the fall. You can see the butterfly weed here behind them, and then further out, the remains of some Indian blanket. I just leave the seeds up. They feed the insects. It makes me happy. The Maximilian sunflower stalks with their seed heads are left all winter because they feed birds in the winter. And they're beautiful to my eye because I understand the biology. And so as you learn more and more and learn to understand the biology, your mind's eye will shift to see things differently and see things as beautiful that maybe you didn't understand were so beautiful before. Speaking of beautiful things, check out the hackberry and the Hercules Club bark. I love hackberries. Most people, or some people, don't like them. I don't know why. I like them a lot. They feed, I think, over 20 different kinds of butterflies. So that means they're feeding birds. So that means they're beautiful. And the Hercules Club this is an older one because they don't get this kind of bark until they get older. Isn't that interesting? Otherwise, you just have pretty thorny bark. Um, the Hercules Club is a plant that's a natural native larval host plant for the swallowtail butterfly. Yellow bells, Tacoma stands, is easily found in the nursery trade. It's on the right. It's also coming up later, but blooming throughout maybe June, July, August, September, October, November. And above you here, you have Corey. There's his scientific name, Iskandar's Cornelius of Wayamba. And Corey likes to pose for me in the garden. Here he is with the bed behind him that we just started 2 years ago. It'll be in the next slide. And here it is with the brown-eyed Susan. Behind that is indigo spires. I'll talk about that more later. And purple coneflower, which is our North Central chapter of the Native Plant Society's spirit plant. So how wonderful is that? Speaking of the North Central chapter, the Southwest Regional Library on Hewlin Street in Fort Worth has a demonstration garden that wraps practically all the way around the library. Excuse me. You simply must go visit. Both of these pictures were taken there in the summer. The desert willow, you can see the trees in bloom. Lantana uricioides is what I have named here. That's the natural occurring lantana in Texas. When you go to the nursery, if it says Lantana camera, do not buy it. Just and tell them you're not going to buy it because it's going to be a problem. It spreads too much, and it is an invasive plant all around the world. Look Lantana camera up on Wikipedia. You'll be shocked. I personally saw it, what a problem it was in South Africa several years ago, and it can kill livestock. It can blind livestock. It grows into ginormous stands as big as a small trailer. It's very hard to get rid of. So don't plant Lantana camera. Do plant Lantana uricioides. And the pokeweed, what here we have on the right, what a beautiful plant. Birds love it. People used to eat the leaves a lot, but you have to boil them like 5 times, and I don't recommend them because they're poisonous. But we may be having to learn how to eat plants here soon. But be sure you know what you're doing before you eat a plant from the wild. Here's a close-up of the coneflower and the Texas lantana. How beautiful are they? So I don't have the species here on the coneflower, but I believe it's Atrorubens. Maybe Jeff Quayle or Michael Eason will correct me on that. Buttonbush, you have to have one of these. It's a bush or small tree, depending on how you prune it. There's a gorgeous sample, or that's not really the word I'm looking for, specimen in front of BRIT, the Botanical Research Institute in Texas. And buttonbush will take shade, part shade, full sun, water, not so much water. It's a wonderful plant, and it has these very interesting and cool flowers that look like they're from another planet. Giant coneflower, Rudbeckia maxima, 6, 7, 8 feet tall. They're more of an East Texas plant, but they will grow here. I have this in an area that stays a little wet. So if you have a little wet area or a really dry area or an in-between area, there's a native plant for that. Just learn your native plants. I hope that this slideshow gets you interested in that. And if you have or contact a Native Plant Society member, they'll probably be able to tell you what might grow well in whatever little area you have. Here's the bee balm. My friend Dawn Hancock gave me the starts of this. I absolutely love this plant. I've moved it all around my yard, and it has a gorgeous fall color of russet leaves. Sometimes I cut it back, sometimes I let it stay. It's just, what you feel like doing. Here's another area. Doesn't that look like a beautiful garden? It's my backyard. You can see the standing cypress with which the red flowers. It's a biennial, so you have to seed it out 2, 3, 4 years in a row to be sure that you're always going to have some in bloom. In this particular area, there's Maximilian sunflower, which is the taller plant with the palmy looking leaves. Greg's salvia in the front, behind those cenizo. So this changes. Oh, and then there's pokeweed along the top there of the cenizo. So this look changes as the seasons change, as the humidity changes. The cenizo will flower. I have some pictures of a dog standing in between the Greg salvia and the cenizo, both in bloom. I wish I could have found that for this pitch for the slideshow. Absolutely stunning. So what's interesting about native plants? It's a kaleidoscope. It's going to keep changing, looking beautiful, providing just what nature needs at the right time. This white early spring was full of bluebonnets. Now here's the summer flush. Look what we've got going here. We've got lemon horsemint, gaillardia, basket flower, and a close-up of this. There's a basket flower feeding a little bee. I think that the scientific name, the species name may have changed on that. Maybe somebody can help me with that later. And then here's just the view then from my porch. The purple horsemint is the sort of stacked flower you see in the back. It is related to the other monarda that we saw earlier. Isn't that gorgeous? Just sit on your front porch and sip some tea and watch the slideshow go by. How wonderful. All right, moving into fall. Eringo, or some people call it a thistle. It's not a thistle. It's one of my favorite plants ever. When this starts to turn purple, you know fall is coming. In the background, that's the basket flower that I've let gone to seed. I'll collect some of that and spread it around. If my neighbors want, I'll give them some seed. We need to start doing that, don't we? Sharing our seeds, or buying from a seed source like Native American seed. Anyway, this is my favorite plant. Let these stand all winter. The seeds will mature in that tall flower. It's a Asteraceae, so it's got lots of seeds in there. And then you can just crumble that up when they've gone completely brown and spread them around. Here's rock rose. How gorgeous is that? There's Exminia yellow in the background. This is a mallow. Oh, okay, so rock rose at the top, Pavonia. It's a mallow. It has a fused stamen, you can see there, and pistil. And it's a little bush. It can spread out. You can pot it up and take it to your native plant sale if you're a member of the chapter, or you can give it to friends. It will kind of spread out. You cut it back just a little bit in the spring, but not too much, and it'll make happy flowers for you in the summer and fall. Snow on the Prairie is an annual. This was all over my property when we first moved here. I absolutely love this plant. I had someone help me weed a couple years ago, and they pulled out all the seedlings out of a particular area, thinking they were weeds, and so now I don't have them anymore there because it's an annual. So learn what your seedlings look like. Now I need to collect some seeds and repopulate that area. So anyway, I just love this. It's a wonderful nectar plant for our fall wildlife. This one really makes me happy to see it in the prairie. It's a tall plant. Here's our cenizo, purple sage. This one is also one that's more natural to areas west and south of us, but it grows well in our gardens, and it certainly does let us know when the humidity changes. You can kind of off to the upper left see the flame acanthus with the little red flowers. That's a great hummingbird plant. I don't have a close-up or other pictures of that, but I would also recommend the flame acanthus for your garden. Now this cenizo that you see here is also this cenizo. And this is a monarch butterfly. A couple years ago, my son and I had walked out into the front garden on a very, very still day, and this butterfly, a female, was just having a wonderful time nectaring. You can see her proboscis has gone deep into the flower there. I took a bunch of pictures of her with my phone, and um, and then we just stopped to watch her. After a while, she took off and flew between our heads, and we heard her wings flap. And I was so overjoyed because I thought, she's going to make it. She's going to make it to Mexico. She's getting fat on the nectar in my garden. She's going to make it. She's going to spend her time there several months, like 6 months, I think, and then maybe 8. And then she's going to fly back north and lay eggs, start laying eggs as she flies. So I think she was probably a survivor. I hope so anyway. Here's another monarch, a different monarch, on an evergreen sumac. This was on a plant walk. I took a bird class at the Heard Museum a few years ago. Heard Museum is in McKinney, and we have the chapter, the Collin County chapter meets there for their chapter meetings at the Native Plant Society. This monarch, this is fall. Obviously, it's a fall bloomer, and it's one of my favorite pictures I have of monarch butterflies. Sexminia, this plant blooms and blooms and blooms. Kind of need to cut it back. You can do what you want with it. It's going to mound up 2 or 3 feet tall and maybe have the same spread. There's no garden in this area that's not happy without a Sexminia. You have to have one, but don't plant it too close to your walkway. Give it some space. Put it 2 to 3 feet back and let it fill. Now here is to show you the gorgeous fall blooming blue muley in the background. Lindheimer's muley, I believe it's also called. This is on an I-35 rest stop at the Native Plant Society of Texas Native Gardens. This project was spearheaded by Kay Jenkins, and there are 4 of these in 2 rest stops in Hill County and 2 in Bell County. We're going to, we had master gardeners approach us at our spring symposium, and they're interested in forming a chapter in Hill County, and part of what we hope they'll do is help to maintain these rest stops, which also are monarch way stations. So you can see natural native plants there when you stop and rest on the highway. Here at the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens, in the Tinsley Garden, the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens got a wonderful legacy gift from a man that loved the gardens, and he asked in his will for a garden to be made in honor of his parents and that it only be native plants. So when you go to the Fort Worth Botanic Garden and go into the Tinsley Memorial Garden, you'll see native plants, and they're labeled, and keep going again and again throughout the seasons and see the beauty of all our native plants. Here we see a stand of 4-nerve daisies in the front, other stuff in the back. I think I see some Millie Blue Sage there, Salvia coccinea, and then this little insert here was a 4-nerve daisy I saw on the side of the highway. Here's a very popular plant in our gardens. I think the origin of this is lost in the midst of time. I've heard different things of it being a naturally occurring hybrid in Texas, in California, who knows. It is a hybrid cross, whether natural or not, and it's a wonderful plant. It grows pretty tall, 4 feet, maybe 5 if you're lucky, but the flower spikes are very long. It's obviously a draw for the native migratory monarchs, and here it is in my garden with Corey. That's a real picture, folks. Isn't that gorgeous? Indigo spires. You want that in your garden, and you also want to trim it back in July, so we'll get those fall blooms. Here's the bur oaks. A large, wonderful open airy oak that we have, Quercus macrocarpa. part of what it makes are these ginormous acorns. Oh my gosh. What are they like? A tennis ball? Maybe not that big. Ping pong ball size. They're very big. The squirrels in my yard love them. The squirrels go to town on them, in fact, and leave little squirrel parties everywhere, and they never ever clean up after themselves. But what a gorgeous plant. Be sure you have room for it if you're going to plant it, though. And look what you can do with it. Uh, Bodark, I said Bodark here because that's what these seed pods are for. I don't know what eats them now. Something does. I've seen them fall on the ground and be eaten, but we know that this is that's the I'm talking about on the left side, the green ball. That's the fruit pod of a bodark tree, and giant sloths from 10,000 years ago used to eat those. So how cool is that? Then you see this little ladder and a little bur oak man. That was made in Glen Rose at the Prairie Rose chapter of the Native Plant Society. They decorate their native garden that's just off the square every fall then keep it throughout the Christmas season and have lights and stuff. It's very fun. If you're in Glen Rose during the holidays, be sure you go by and see the Prairie Rose chapter's wonderful display there. We also, the Native North Central chapter, made these little Christmas towers with the bur oak cones, and then that's a garlic, not native, but it's fun in your garden. Um, Elephant garlic seed pod. And we had some coloring books there, so for little party favors. How fun is that? Fall blooming aster with Corey. You can't have a fall garden without these. It's just, they're so stunning and they make you happy. And they obviously make me happy because I have them everywhere. Anyway, got to have a fall aster. Gay feather here on the left with broomweed, the little flower. Pioneers used to gather them up and use them to sweep, so thus the common name broomweed for that yellow flower in the background. Gay feather is natural to this area. I used to have a ton of it in my garden. I don't really know what happened to it, but it's not as prevalent now as it used to be. But I also have this false gara here on the right, which can get to 8 feet tall, an airy plant with lots of wavy, slender stalks. It's a tall grass prairie plant, so you know you're in the prairie if the false gara has grown naturally in your garden. I just love this plant. Here's a fall pictures of smoke tree. Remember I told you I was going to show you that a few slides back. And fall pictures of the red oak. This is a smaller tree than a bur oak. Maybe appropriate for a smaller landscape, but maybe not. So be sure you check on your adult sizes of your plants before you plant anything in your garden. Goldenrod there. This was on the Heard Museum Plant Walk. That's a fabulous fall blooming plant which also supports our migrations. In winter, oh, I love winter. I love to see the trees, their forms. They've taken off all their clothes and they're just showing us what they look like. The two flanking ones here are bur oaks, and the one in the further off distance is a hackberry. And that you can see a star in the sky. So the winter skies are different than summer skies, and seasons come and go, and they make me happy. It's beautiful to see how the seasons change. Here, just this year in 2020, I was at my friend's property on Lake Ray Roberts. We like to go camping there. And the possum haw, naturally occurring, and Indian grass there, naturally occurring. What did nature do? Is that stunning? We need to copy that. I think that's just such a beautiful arrangement that I want that in my garden. And look what we have again. Spring Herald, the elbow bush. In winter, yes, it starts to bloom in late winter. So it's a herald of spring. And now we have broomweed. When I looked over this in the summer, that was all yellow, and then there was also some fall blooming white asters in there. It just loved it. Just beautiful colors, a beautiful way to see the sunset. Hey, so now we're going to review. Okay, now go back. Don't plant St. Augustine's, crepe myrtles, banana plant, elfiniris canis. All those except the crepe myrtles require lots of water. As our population grows, we need to conserve our water. So I recommend you do not plant them. And the crepe myrtles, while they might be pretty, they're from Asia. They have no place really here anymore. They're overplanted. We need to have biodiverse gardens. So cut them down. Watering plan, isn't that between you and nature? When I first plant something, a native plant in my garden, I'll take care to water it for a year or two, and then I let it go. If it doesn't stay, it wasn't meant to be, and I'm okay with that. So in your garden, be sure you have at least 70 to 80% native plants. Go ahead and have those daffodils and irises and maybe a althea or spirea that makes you happy. But just have those non-native plants that are not invasive be a small percentage, 20, 30% of your garden, and then leave the rest for what should naturally be occurring here. Because didn't nature know best? Creation happened the way it did for a reason, and there it is. The reason is to feed our wildlife. We want 3 seasons of nectar, we want to have host plants, we want to have native plants. You can learn more about native plants and how to grow them in each of your regions in the Native Landscaping Certification Program of the Native Plant Society of Texas. So check our website on that. You can join us online today. You can look under, I can't remember if it's education or resources for the NLCP classes, but just go through all these tabs. What else are you doing right now? Look through our website, see what's on there. If you get to the North Central chapter, you'll find that if you are a new member, you can get an incentive book of your choice, either the Sally Waskowski book or the Michael Eason's Wildflowers of Texas. I think we also still have some Ricky Lennox books, which are range plants of north of our region. Absolutely fabulous book. Websites. Thanks ever so much to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, to Britt. Britt has a phone app that has the plants of our prairie plants of our region. I recommend you go to Britt on your phone and find the phone app for you. It's wonderful. They may even have it on computer. The North Central chapter, go to our website, flip down through all our tabs, learn about places, things to learn. It's a wonderful resource. Go back through our old newsletters. Josephine Keeney always writes some wonderful plant story. Martha Mullins has fabulous book reviews and other stories. The photography's great. Our newsletter is award-winning and deservedly so. And so please go to the North Central Chapter's website and check our newsletters out. Of course, you're on Facebook right now or YouTube. And these are some different places that you should go. The North Central Chapter for our region. I think Dallas has a Facebook page. I think every chapter in the North Central page. And Texas Flora here is an associated Facebook page of the Native Plant Society, and it's a wonderful resource for learning about plants, native plants, and IDing native plants in Texas. So thank you very much. I appreciate you paying attention and watching this program. I hope you learned something. I'll be president until October 2021, and then I'll be president-elect. And it's a pleasure to do this program for you. Thank you very much for watching. And stay healthy, my friends.